Okay, we call our work session to order. The topic tonight is our strategic plan, strategic goals. We've been working on this off and on amongst everything else. So
Josh, can you put
hopefully tonight we can move this another big step forward. Spencer?
Sure. So we're working with our consultants on refining this. They drafted it. The mayor, John, and I got together, reviewed their draft, and there were some things in there where you could tell they just didn't have the knowledge of what exactly we were talking about, so we were able to make it applicable to us specifically. So what we're hoping to do is to go through this and edit, change, add, delete, whatever we want to do. Once we get the council finalized on it, we'll send it back to our consultants and they'll make it all nice into something that we want to publish. So this is our working draft at this point. So if we want to go through it, let me just kind of show how it's organized. So we were on the left to start with the area of focus, then it gets more specific to the priority. Sometimes there's one, sometimes there's more than one. And then lastly, the indicators of success. And these are really the measurements. And we put on here the same thing we did last time, and that is the goal is to have these completed by the end or by January 27 within 2 years. But that doesn't mean that individual ones on here can't be done sooner, and the council can't say, okay, we'd like to do this one next and have it done by this date or that date. But we don't necessarily want to, at least last time we didn't want to put it in here because the council wanted flexibility on priorities. So just any questions or we can jump in? Okay.
Go on.
All right, so the first area of focus, let's see, put up here for everyone else. There's a lot there. By the way, last year the council was encouraged to get down to 10. I think they settled on 16. And I think
There's 19 here.
Yeah, just pointing that out. All right, there's a little bit easier for the public to see. Okay, so the first area of focus was increased community engagement and communication. The priority was to create and implement a resident communication strategy. And the two goals or indicators of success. First is create goals and objectives for a city newsletter, launch it with the means of distribution to be determined. And second was to establish a system to measure resident satisfaction scores and create a baseline data set to set goals and objectives for council and staff. So really two things, it's starting a city newsletter and conducting some sort of city resident survey to gauge community sentiment and create that baseline so we can basically ask the same questions in a future year.
I think it's more than a city newsletter. A city newsletter is one aspect of a communication plan. And that has to do with not just a newsletter, but press releases, public forums, a lot of different things. So I would prefer not to just home in on a newsletter, but on a communication plan. And we can maybe say the newsletter might be the first step in that communication plan or something like that.
And I would actually agree with you in the adjustment, but for a different reason, in that when we sit down and figure out what a communication strategy looks like, it may not be a newsletter.
Yeah.
It may be something completely different.
And it's how you define newsletter.
Right. So I just don't think the word newsletter in there is necessary. I think it can be very much the priority itself, create and implement a resident communication strategy is sufficient.
Well, we do want to
And
get
a method
something,
of measurement.
and maybe it's adopting some kind of policy or some sort of plan.
Well, a newsletter almost says that it has to go out like every month or every quarter. There might not be anything to say So I don't necessarily think we have to have a
In
cadence
this town,
necessarily.
nothing to say?
Well, there could be, I mean, I don't wanna put out a newsletter with nothing in there, so to me, I don't think it has to be like a monthly thing, it should be almost as needed.
So it sounds like the real, going back to, we want more community engagement and communication, but we don't want to focus in on that right away. We want to have further discussions of what our options are and what the right strategy is for Seaside.
I have noticed you guys are already doing a certain piece of that on social media.
Where?
Which part?
Well, just the city Facebook page is putting out more content than I've ever seen them put out. That must be you, John?
Mostly Josh.
Josh.
Josh is
Thursday.
Thursday. I'm back then.
Yeah, the Thursday turnaround is kind of like that, but it's business facing.
Yeah.
That's
As opposed
business
to
facing.
As opposed to resident facing.
Right.
Also the chamber. No,
But that's not the
that's
chamber.
not the Thursday thing, is it?
Right.
We have chamber and SVDA to do once a week, do the same thing.
Yeah, but they do it for their members and, you know.
No, they're open to the public. Anybody can sign up.
Yeah, that's true, but it's still.
I do
Maybe-
like
Maybe
the-
the first thing is we need to ask the public, how do you want us to communicate with you?
Right.
That's why I do like the satisfaction survey idea. They even had some thoughts on the ones that are used nationally, and that might help us baseline, like, how do you want to hear from us?
Yeah.
And what do you want to hear from us?
I know, I can answer that. They want to know everything that they want to know about and nothing they don't want to know about.
That's
Well,
easy.
You know, and if you want to see some good examples, look at what Bend does, look at what Hillsborough does. There are some really good communications out there
And
to
do
residents.
they publish their resident satisfaction scores on that?
Oh, I'm not
communication
talking about,
strategy?
I have not seen satisfaction surveys. I'm talking
Right.
about
So I'm
communications.
just
to
circling
them.
around and saying, okay, they do all kinds of stuff, but do the residents actually use it? Do they like it? Are they happy with
Well,
what they're
yeah,
getting?
and I don't know how they
Yeah,
measure
so I
that.
think, let's get some resident buy-in before we get too far down the road.
Okay, so I have something along the lines of adopt a city communication plan. Is that the right wording?
Yep.
Strategy and plan. Those
I
are
like
two different
strategy.
things in my mind.
Okay. Are we good with establish the survey? Okay. Next area of focus, review and update zoning, ordinance, plans, and policies. That word zoning may need to come out, 'cause I think it
I
was.
do believe it does.
So the priorities were examine the city charter, update boards, commissions, and committees, and zoning ordinance. Finalize and adopt a comprehensive plan. So then,
Probably ought to once again remove the word zoning.
Well, this is mushing together land use planning and other things.
say
And I
let-
think we need to separate them
let's
out.
pull out the zoning ordinance.
I know there was conversation that out of this comprehensive plan, we would have new zoning.
Comprehensive plan is all about land use planning and zoning.
So I talked to
It's not
Josh
about
today,
ordinances and it's not about-
about the zoning ordinance. Oh, he's right there. I can talk about it. And because we know ours is outdated. The trouble with adopting one now is it needs to be informed by the comprehensive plan. We're hoping, like, ideally, by the end of summer, early fall, we could have the comprehensive plan finalized, and then we could go into that next. However, I guess the question in my mind is, all of our ordinances, as Councilor Montero and I spoke about last week, I think all of our codes need to be updated.
Absolutely.
Do we want to start with zoning, or how do we want to prioritize all the ordinances that are, we have on our books since the 1970s or
We're
something?
working on the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan feeds right into zoning. So you can put that over here. Charter, and then all non-zoning ordinances that it would include the boards, commissions, committees, and a whole bunch of other things. Sign ordinance, a whole bunch of other things. That is a second piece of it. And those do not have to happen at the same time. They don't have to happen sequentially. One does not necessarily depend on the other. So that's how I would parcel them out. you know, I put charter, I put non-zone ordinances, and then comprehensive plan and land use planning zoning ordinances.
I will say, and maybe Jeff, you can correct me, I think the comprehensive plan will inform more than just zoning, though. Is that, you, Jeff, do you want to come speak to that?
Oh, turn that one off.
Your comprehensive plan is going to touch on things with public works, goals and priorities of the city as far as open space, parks. It is largely surrounding land use, but it's also going to kind of guide where we go as far as our infrastructure needs, because that's all driven by our population growth. The land use aspect of it's what keeps that population growth, depending on what the goals are of the council. So
So would that change what we already have, or just as we expand the urban growth boundary, does it affect that?
it can, yeah. If we do go for an urban growth boundary expansion, we got to make sure we have the infrastructure to handle
But
it.
if we don't, it still informs how we're gonna build out within the existing boundaries.
But most of it's built out, so you're saying what would be left?
But then there are.
I think it would be the infill or redevelopment.
But then there are a lot of ordinances that would not be included in that part of it. I mean, signage, sign ordinances, you know, the boards, commissions, and committee ordinances. There's a whole bunch of things.
I mean,
So you can split those things out,
Yeah.
and that's what we should do.
I don't know how many sections I could pull it up, but there's might be 30 different sections or chapters or something like that. So I think, so the question for this is, what's the highest priority for the council when it comes to updating these kinds of documents? Where do you want to spend your time?
I can tell you mine, and that's the boards, commissions, committees, all the non-zoning kinds of things. Because we have consistently been hearing that we have ordinances that are not in compliance with state law. We hear, oh yes, we can't enforce this because we don't have a current up-to-date ordinance. So there's things we can't do until we've got ourselves fixed. And I think that's where we need to go is, because the zoning is going to happen through the comp plan. But all these other little rules about how we manage the city in the best interest of our residents, that's something hasn't been looked at in years. It's been piecemealed, band-aided, patched. We need to look at it.
So I'm trying to pull up here how many. Seems tough. So we have 153 chapters. Let me pull up like
I wonder if with this, if we can go even higher level and just say, we want to come out of this in the next 2 years with our boards, committees, and commissions. And on the rest of it, we come up with a calendar that says we're going to update our ordinances this often so that it becomes on the calendar and is done regularly. Because everything that we're starting to look at is we're doing the comprehensive plan. Okay, when do we need to do it again? Okay, let's put it on the calendar for 2040. Let's do this and put it on the calendar. And so that all that stuff is out there, everything that has to be looked at over time. And what we do during this time period is say, we look at all of these ordinances and prioritize them.
That's not a bad idea for once you have brought your ordinances
But you're never going to get it all done at one time and say, now it's ready, and
Remember,
now let's do it.
we've got
It's
2
not-
years.
it's-
So
Well-
let me
No.
actually, John, are you able to bring up the city's website on here?
At some point, you have to decide which are the most important ones.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying is if
And-
we come up with a prioritization during this time frame and be able to say, these are
These
the
are the
order
ones
that we
we
want
want done by the
now.
end of the
This
2
is
years.
This is
And
the
then
ones we want for the next
go
and
to
the next,
the
and then it
page,
all goes in and we
it's
say, okay, every
Seaside ordinance?
X amount of
I
time,
can see
these
that.
get
I can
relooked
see
at.
that.
think if you go to
But I don't
government-
want us to just focus on one little thing.
And that's what I'm saying, going bigger.
From my perspective, I feel like the boards, committees, and the commissions
So-
is something we've been trying to do forever and probably would be the easiest thing to tackle. And then after that, I look at, once we expand the UGB, what is that development gonna look like?
UGB has nothing to do with sign ordinance, with a lot of the other things.
Well, what I'm saying
No.
is, as far as the land use, I would want to look at what that new subdivisions and all those are gonna look like as far as parks and all those
And I
things.
see that having its own track.
Yeah.
Separate those tracks out.
Spencer.
So what I'd like to show is when we say non-zoning, if you want to kind of scroll slowly through this, John, that's not an easy task. It's all of these things, and they all need to be updated.
Yeah.
I mean, each one of these chapters is probably, maybe the length of our council guidelines policy that we worked on for 2 years. Not that it needs to take 2 years, but
I think.
I don't think it's a matter
most
of just
those
saying,
are
hey, we'll
more
update
simple.
these.
I think most of those are a lot
Some
more
of them are.
simple than
I agree with you.
what we did there, to where we could actually pick a title and say, let's work on this, and we prioritize which titles we wanna.
Land use will be a beast.
Yeah. that'll-
And that's not,
yeah.
yeah, that's got its own track, its
Right.
own track.
Scroll back a little bit, John. Anyway, so I think I would just suggest that updating all the other ordinances is not doable
Not
in
2
the next 2
years.
years.
And that's why I'm saying if we can come up with a prioritization and a plan that says this is how often we regularly update our ordinances, and that way, moving forward 10 years from now, they're like, oh, these are the sections of ordinances we need to do this year.
But I don't want us to take 2 years to come up with a prioritization strategy. We need to have a prioritization strategy, and we need to get started. I mean, I can tell you, boards, commissions, and committees, I've been talking about for 8 years.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying not to do that. But what I'm saying is for the rest of it, that's not land use and not
Yeah,
boards,
exactly.
committees, and commissions, let's come up with a prioritization.
I would change the priority to creating the plan there. And then, one indicator of success besides doing boards, committees, and commissions, actually set the plan.
I guess
To me, it's not success to have a plan if you haven't started working on it.
We could probably do one, is what he's saying.
I guess my thought is
Only one?
to remove the zoning ordinance part. So we have, make a decision, we've analyzed the charter, we make a decision if we're going to attempt to change it or not. We adopt new ordinance for boards, commission, committees, adopt new comprehensive plan, and then that doesn't stop us from saying, okay, now we want to do the criminal code, or now we want to do the sign code. We can pick any one of those at that point.
So how about,
I just don't think we need to make that decision today, and I don't want to put off the decision by 2 years.
I think if we
Right.
don't put it on paper, we're gonna not hold ourselves to it. Based on how
That's
many
right.
years has it been being talked about without anything happening?
Charter has
I don't think
been-
we've ever
oh
talked
no,
about it.
charter has been on our
In the
strategy.
years
This
that
is
I've
like
been
the
coming to
third
this,
time.
it has come up many, many times. But it isn't getting done.
Have
So
we
let's put
budgeted
it
any
on
money for
paper.
this?
No, this would be staff doing it.
Staff doing it. So have we thought about, one way to get it done is to budget money for help, for consulting help to get this
An
done?
analyst.
We could look at it. Again, it's going to take, it's not like they can do it because all these changes have to be worked on with the council. So they would need to come in and work with the council, but we could put out a request for proposals or something, or get an idea of the cost.
It's putting the effort together, it's doing the research, it's defining what current state is, it's defining when the last time this was updated, gathering all that information sounds to me like,
Well, a lot of that's already in the code now, in terms of when it was last updated and everything.
so what about what's potentially not in conflict with state law, or, what's the oldest on the books, or, something that could help do a bit of the research around the effort?
So I will say this, I think, and as it's, Jeff and I have talked about this the most, because it's kind of our two areas, administration and land use. In our minds, so much of it is so old and outdated that it's not worth our time to go through and edit it. but it's to find a model template and then tweak it to what we need. So like the sign code, instead of trying to go through and find out what's current, what's not current, we get a model sign code from LOC, from elsewhere, from DLCD, and we review it together and see if it matches what we need, if we want to make some changes.
That's a great idea, but not something that necessarily you or Jeff have to do.
Spencer needs more on his plate, so
I
I'm okay
just
with
want
that.
to get it done. If we want to get it done, you
If we
know.
want to get it done, we need to have somebody to do it. And we
but-
can't just add it to the top of your pile because it'll go to the bottom of your pile.
But I think that that's why we need to take a higher look at it and say, let's come up with a plan and a prioritization of what order we want to get stuff done in. And then based on that, we
And
can
who's
then
gonna
come
do
up-
that? Who's gonna come up with the plan?
Well, I think through discussions, we
We're
would
gonna
come up
set
with a
a work
plan of
session,
what's,
just like
what,
this.
what the priority is.
Chip
And
away
we
at the
say,
needs.
okay, and we put them in order and we say, these are what's most important, these are less important, this will take, you know, this is this long, so it's gonna take X amount of time.
Staff could
Yeah.
even start with, here's the ones we use the most that we know are problematic.
There you go.
Yeah, great. But we've got a plan, we've got it in order, and then as we have time available for workshops, we can say, we're gonna sit with this and say, bring us the materials of a model plan. Let's look at them to get, you know, side by side.
Time available is the way to make it not happen. We never have time available. Because there's always things that have to be done.
So how would you like to do it?
I'm not opposed to having a plan, but not as time available. And I think that we can most likely afford to have someone contract with somebody to sort of lead the work to get it off their plates or his plate.
And at what point would you like to talk about it? And how would you?
Well,
like
we
that
do
to
have
happen?
to talk about it, yes.
Okay, so I think that's kind of what I said.
What if we were to think about the plan, yes, and at the same time, we've got some low-hanging fruit or some obvious, like maybe it's boards, commissions, and committees, and we start that at the same time, and we learn from that work effort at the same time as we're doing the plan.
I think a lot of work has already been done on those boards, commissions, and committees.
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
Can we maybe do like a straw poll on that one? Because it seems like everyone's in agreement that that needs to be done. Just say,
Boards,
let's do it.
committees, and
Yeah.
commissions? Oh, yeah, I think we
Is
all
everyone in
agree.
favor of focusing on that first?
As a place to start, I think it's great. I think we need to have something by which to hold ourselves accountable, to be able to say, okay, we finished this, now instead of dropping the ball, pick up, go on to another thing.
So right now you've got three things: charter, boards, commissions, committees, comp plan. Do you want to say, and one more, and two more?
And I'll give you one
And you guys
more.
can choose what that
I'll
is.
give you one more that I've been harping about, and that's parking. The time that you can park in a park or on the street or whatever. And I haven't sent you the pictures, but I told you, I took a tour of the city. I took pictures of almost every one of our parking signs. All we have to do is standardize this. It's really a low-hanging fruit. Because it's not a zoning thing. It's simply, where do we want to allow overnight parking? And what are the hours that we consider? I mean, yeah.
Would it be too big of a workload for you guys to just go through the list and kind of prioritize it to decide which ones you have the most issues with? That
We could
need
probably put them
parking?
into groups of like, really need to be updated, we use sometimes, and things that are probably much less important.
Okay. I'd be open to that.
The things that are in particular that, you know, you're not allowed to do anymore because rules have changed and we've had court cases, whatever. You know, what you can put as public speech, our friend across the street there. Those kind of things. Those are the top priorities as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure parking is one of them as far as I'm worried about.
So I guess,
I still don't want to just put something up there now because that's the discussion we need to have. I agree with David, we need to figure that out. And you guys saying that we haven't ever accomplished anything, we did more the prior 2 years than we've ever done in the past, as far as getting things off that list. And we brought it up about quarterly over the 2-year period, so we all knew where we were at on things. Yes, there are things like the charter that haven't risen to that level to be able to bring up and figure out, is this as important as some of the other things that we've done? You know, it's just gonna take scheduling a work session and homework, and that homework on this too means we all need to go through the entire list of ordinances and read them.
That's what I was just gonna suggest, let's divide it up.
Yeah.
You get these chapters, you get these chapters, and look for things that are obviously out of date or incorrect, and then come back and then we decide what.
Well, I think, you know,
priority.
staff knows because they have to deal with them, and they can reach out to department heads and get the ones that everybody knows staff-wise, and then come back and we'll have another work session and go through that list.
Well, I don't have any trips planned for 4 months, so I'm happy to
Okay.
take on some homework.
And your background in law enforcement.
There you
should
go.
help too, yeah. I'd really like to get through all of this tonight so we can work on that, so let's work on the rest of it. Have you got a feeling kind of where we're trying to go there? You're always really
Yes.
good with
So,
your,
I mean,
with
for
your
one, I would
AI
take-
trying to make it say
I
what
would,
we're
I
trying to
would
say.
take off the zoning for now.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then I could come back to, it sounds like the council agrees we want to start updating other ordinances, other chapters of our code. We don't know which yet.
Right.
And so we either, I think, leave that off something specific here, but we still keep this a priority, or say on here, update 2 other or 3 other chapters or something like that, and we don't need to decide that at this meeting.
Maybe what we do is we settle on, okay, this work session on this date, we're going to go through and we're gonna do some prioritization.
Yeah, that's like something the council can do at any point. I mean, we can do that whether or not that's on this at all.
I do think it makes sense to what David said, to have a cadence to do this regularly, because no one council is gonna be able to do all this. This is a huge workload, so maybe every 2 years we pick a couple and we just try to update them, and the ones that are most important.
2 per year is not enough.
Well,
But I think we need to have that discussion, and I don't think this is the time. So I'd suggest we move on unless there's something specific with that we want to put in our goals, strategic goals for now. Also, if we do get a plan put together, there's nothing to say that we can't amend this, you know, in 3 months if we have that plan together and add that as a indicator of success.
Because we are gonna look at this quarterly.
Yeah. Okay, if that's okay, we're gonna keep going to.
Figured out.
It's clear. Next one, address needed infrastructure improvements to create increased resiliency. So priorities, develop a plan to build a vertical evacuation structure, update and modernize the wastewater system, and continue efforts to expand watershed ownership. John, can you grab me my water over there? I'm not gonna make it through. So the detailed metrics, the vertical evacuation structure, that's probably the most ambiguous. Thank you. So this is establish a detailed plan with clear milestones for building a vertical evacuation structure. So what are all the steps that need to be taken? Because I don't even think we know that yet. We have some ideas. Next, adopt a new wastewater master plan and capital facilities plan.
Isn't that already underway?
The RFP has not gone out yet, so that is something that we'll still be working on. Eliminate wastewater permit violations and expand watershed land ownership by the city.
And the wastewater permit violations are violations by the city. Yes.
Yeah, where we have overflows into the river or onto streets and things like that.
So we've
Or
begun-
certain measurements at the treatment plant are too high coming out.
And we've begun sort of those two, the wastewater and the watershed. Those are.
Yeah, this is really, the watershed is really continuation. We did that and we weren't successful, and so this is, we are going to try again. And the fact that we've done a lot of the work means there's not as much work the second time. That doesn't mean we can't have some easier wins on here
That's right.
to celebrate.
I have
Oh.
some comments just on the development plan for a vertical evacuation structure. After our conversation with Merkley's, I think it was his assistant, was it Merkley's assistant?
The staff guy.
Yeah. I have my, well, even prior to that, but I have my doubts on the actual vertical evacuation structure of where this would even be put. So for me, the only way I see this being feasible is in conjunction with a parking garage, because I don't think we have a acre plot downtown that we want to just put for a tower that's going to be used once in a millennia. So it makes sense to me to combine this with a parking garage as opposed to a standalone structure.
I
However,
think that's
it-
part of this, is to identify the most successful path to create one. And right now, it's likely a parking garage.
But if you identify parking garage as a major part of this, you are less likely to get funding. You've got to talk about tsunamis, you've got to talk about vertical evacuation, you've got to talk about safety.
I think they were okay with it if it was part of it.
But we've got
They were
what
okay
Dope Bombing
until-
has to say,
Until
yes.
FEMA just
Right.
pulled it
Yeah,
all the way.
so
yeah.
part of this, the model has been, I mean, to develop a plan, we were gonna look at what Washington did. And what they did was got BRIC grants, which are to build resiliency.
Which no longer exist right now.
And they've been
Well,
cut.
and Tina
So-
makes a point. I mean, come on. With the administration that's in power right now, they're not even sending out FEMA money to states that are getting impacted by tornadoes. Do we really think they're gonna give up the federal money to build this thing
But
that
you know
is gonna
what?
be used
But-
once a
That's,
millennium?
they-
that's starting over here. We need to start here because we have to put together a strategy. We need to use the work that Dogami has done. We have a wonderful consultant that's willing to work with us for free, and that's Columbia Memorial. They've gone through the process. They know how the process works. So we've got to look at the process before we
long
make all.
process.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a long, but that's where we need to start. We need to start there and, you know.
Start working.
Yeah.
I think that's why the goal here is to develop a plan, so.
As long as this includes a potential parking garage, I'm fine with the way it's written.
I think if that's the most,
I
if
don't
that's the
think-
most likely
yes.
way, then that would probably be in there, but if there's a better way that we'd find out, then, I mean,
If
That's
you
what the
notice,
plan will-
when these are placed in
Have a
urban
lot of
areas, they're usually not
tourism money.
standalone. They're usually on a roof, or there's something that they're combined with.
Okay, moving on to the peach color, improve transportation access and infrastructure. The priority is enhance transportation safety and infrastructure and implement the pavement management plan. And the indicators of success are develop a program to identify potential transportation safety concerns and a process to address them. And the second one is identify potential new sources of funding, apply for appropriate funding opportunities to begin road maintenance projects. The road maintenance projects could even be pulled out as a third one that we've started that. And the funding could be a separate indicator of success, but I think all of that's applicable.
Because it usually takes a while to get the funding.
The transportation, safety, and infrastructure, that seems kind of broad. Can you remind me where we were going
What does that
with
mean?
that?
Yeah, I don't recall that one either.
I think,
That one.
yeah, I think that was coming out of Councilor McVeigh.
Was that
Like
the,
the
Oh,
Wahana
Wahana.
four-way stop.
yeah,
Or
things
three
like
roads or something.
spots like getting a signal in at Broadway and Mahoney, even if it's just a flashing red light, something that's going to be more identifiable than like the stop sign that's often hidden by branches. Or we know that down where Pacifica is going in, where Dutch Brothers is, there's a new complex going in back there at some point, is going to severely impact traffic in that part of town. And being able to assess, you know, is it possible to put in a light there? Would that help with keeping traffic moving and keep it moving safely? If that's addressing things like turning left onto the highway coming off Wahana there, I mean, these are all areas that we can look at and develop so that we can stop the
So what
6-mile backup,
Some of it-
you know, during the summer.
Some of that seems to me, the TSP, yeah. When do we need to update and relook at the TSP? Because that's what would be in there.
I don't think it goes to
Transportation
that
systems.
level of detail of
Some of
the
it-
intersection.
It actually talks about
Some of the stuff that's in there
intersections
is
and projects on
just,
certain intersections.
So I think, I mean, we can go look and see if one, I don't know if a new one's needed, or if an update's needed, or if we should be following it. I think when I read this as, right now, we get concerns raised from council members, from residents. What is the process? What's the role of the transportation committee? What's the role of the council? What's the role of staff? Let's have a process. If someone says, I think this is unsafe, okay, as a city, where do we go from there?
We saw a memo to that effect, that you were gonna be working through a plan of trying to say, this is how these concerns go
And
through
that
the
was
process.
specific to traffic calming, but I think we would expand it to any traffic concerns of, here's the policy, and if it meets this, and this, then that request goes to the transportation committee, they make a recommendation, or something like that. But it's basically establishing a way to handle these things, we're not specifically here trying to solve one specific intersection.
What
So
about
does
the
any of
fact that
this-
most of this is ODOT and 101 is controlled by them? I mean, not not Wahana.
Yeah,
or
this
Broadway,
would
but most of
really-
these issues are ODOT.
This would only be for stuff within our control.
Yeah. And
some of it
does
Say
this,
you have to completely eliminate it though,
No.
because we do have
Influence.
some.
A little bit.
The big issue right now is ODOT just has no money, period, so.
but it doesn't mean we can't
And
approach
that's
it.
that's a whole nother thing
Yeah,
that we
it
need
is.
to talk about, whether we're going to support this framework that's coming up.
And the mayor is very well aware of how those transportation funds get, being that he's on what's it called?
Northwest Act.
Northwest Act is how they make those decisions where to do that money. So that's.
But I think just creating the
Yeah, no,
framework
I'm
to
not-
say,
I'm not
okay,
saying
somebody
you are, I'm
has
just
a
saying
question,
He's got the background. to
it
be able
goes
know how
to
all that
the
stuff's working.
transportation committee, here's how they should handle it. And then, if it comes beyond that, it comes to the council to help decide something.
so does that sort of include or get put into review and update of the TSP? Is that part of this whole thing?
I don't know if it needs to be updated. I think this is something
When was the last
different
time
from
we looked
that.
at it?
The goals on the
I
last one
don't
were
know.
supposed to be
Longer
completed
than
by
It
this year,
was
so.
7 years.
That's about right.
Yeah, it's about.
But
due
I guess
for-
the question is it outdated, or is it just
Well,
7 years?
We won't know if it's outdated if we don't look at it.
I think that's simply a matter of us saying, let's direct the transportation
Committee.
Commission.
to go through the
Review.
TSP and see if it needs updating.
That's what they do, right? They
Yeah,
look at the different.
That's their main, that's the main
That'd
That'd be
role.
very simple direction from us. It doesn't need to be on here.
So what is the process for, let's say, Avenue S and 101? The Improvement Commission's talked about the problems with that intersection. Is it something we reach out to ODOT and just let them know that we have a problem?
We have, they know S, I hate to put it this way, but basically somebody has to get killed before they'll pay attention to it.
And being that
And
Avenue
same thing
U
with
is
the-
right there, they don't want to add
Well,
additional
yeah, they
lights
won't- they
because
won't
their
do
idea
it
is
in U
this is
either.
I-5 for the coast, so they want traffic moving.
So there is a process for us to inform them and let them know.
Yeah, and we could have that discussion with ODOT. I'd be happy to bring
It'd also be helpful just to
Bill
know.
in, just to have the discussion about all 3 of those intersections.
My guess is with ODOT, with any intersection, there's going to be you have to hit certain metrics, number of vehicles turning, vehicles pulling through. There's gonna be a couple different things. And it either meets it or doesn't meet it, but it would be helpful to know at least what that is and what our numbers
So is
currently
it
look
car
like.
traffic that's the issue there?
They do meet the rules right now, otherwise the project wouldn't have been allowed.
And in all the traffic, I don't want us to ignore the roads going up to the schools. Because I think they've been harder hit, that neighborhood's been harder hit than certainly was anticipated.
Would that be the improvement commission that would take that one on?
It could be the city or the improvement commission.
I think that falls under our pavement preservation plan as we prioritize those projects.
I know there's sidewalk issues there.
So I think the question is, what do we want for the council goals to be? I mean, we're doing we want to do a lot of the work right now in this meeting, and I think is, what are we hoping to accomplish?
The way you explained it, when you narrowed it in on what is the procedure and policy for moving forward with a safety concern, whether it's from a resident or us or whoever, defining that seemed like a good.
Do you want me to maybe make that a little bit
More
clearer or
Have a
specific?
defined policy and procedure for handling.
Blue one is increase,
Access to housing and resources.
yeah.
I was
No,
mentioning this
yeah.
to Jeff, just one thing real quick is, I really don't want the word project associated with Pacifica.
Right.
I want to call it the Pacifica.
Okay.
Now, related Northwest may call it somewhere else, but for now, for us, as far as the city's concerned, let's call it the Pacifica.
Pacifica project's too confusing.
Because
It is in this
That's
community.
quite
It
a
is in
senior
this community.
project.
It
That's a
has
connotation.
connotations that,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So if we go to priorities, expand affordable housing with targeted subsidies, support the related Northwest Pacifica project.
Take off project,
The Pacifica.
Pacific, can you say
Related
development?
Housing
Northwest.
development.
Can you say development?
Development. How's that?
Is that, Steve, is that
Support
okay?
the Pacifica
Housing.
development.
I like development.
Use
like
development there and then say the Pacifica is under construction.
Okay.
Development with a small
Develop,
d.
develop housing goals based on the housing needs analysis that's currently being conducted now. New homeless camp and updated camping ordinance and policy. So the actual metrics, affordable housing projects have been initiated. The Pacifica is under
Affordable
construction.
housing developments have been initiated.
Developments instead of projects.
Sure.
Trying
Get
to go
projects
with-
out.
Yeah.
out.
Track and report increasing housing units available in Seaside. So that could be a regular, quarterly, or annual thing that we are discussing our progress.
It's already
And
underway.
then, new homeless camp is open and residents are transitioned.
What is our expected timeline? We were April, but.
Like June, waiting on the fencing. Improve access to recreational activities, improve existing park and recreation facilities. So the first one has to do with Fort Dune. Establish goals for the beach Fort Dune that meets the city's needs and is consistent with state goals. The mayor and I wordsmithed that for a while because we have our goals. Other people have different goals, and so we're not sure what to put here. We could leave that off, or we could leave that in. I think we'd like to get some answers. We're just not sure what that end result is gonna look like at this point. And then develop the plans for the North 40 Park, Estuary Park, Quatat Park, and start construction on at least one project.
One park project.
Yeah.
What I'm not seeing there in that is, I don't know what ended up out of the budget committee regarding the school administration building, hospital.
They've both been budgeted for, and so starting in July, the council at any time can make a determination.
So I wouldn't mind putting Cartwright into that list there.
Yeah, that needs love.
So developing a plan for Cartwright as well?
Yeah, I think you're right.
One of the things that's kind of flown under the radar but are in need of desperate renovation are the prom turnaround restrooms. If anyone hasn't been in there, I highly recommend you check them out.
Yeah.
And that's where, and that gets really heavy use, and that's where so many people see our city.
And I have a real problem putting that much money into taking down the administration building without some sort of plan afterwards to say, this is why we spent it, because we want to go and do this.
Yeah, I think that's
To
good.
just say, oh,
So do we
we've
want to
got
add
this space.
Cartwright Park and prom? So I would say one of my priorities has been to have an engineering firm come out and establish the integrity, structural integrity of the prom, how it's been built, what's underneath it, what do we need to do to make it last another 100 years. There are parts where it is sinking. They've been trying to epoxy it back together, but it doesn't stay. And so there is some work that needs to happen. And that could include also renovating the restrooms. But also the Fordune stuff has to be figured out for us before we go in.
Fordune and prom is like,
Yeah, so we can add all of that. So I just don't know if we're going to realistically do all 5 projects in the next 2 years.
And just to add to Cartwright Park, the restrooms there are major need of repair as well.
I mean,
And
it's
they
just
need to
develop
be-
a plan and start construction on phase 1, so you can
Yeah.
develop a plan for all the others, and then pick which
So-
one you're gonna actually do.
So I guess the question would be, let's say the council decides North 40 is our highest priority. How much time and resources do we want to spend on developing other park grants that we won't do for many years after North 40, as an example?
well, yeah.
I think you can do surveys and ideas from the community on what we want to see done there, and then we can prioritize
We've already
and
done
put them
that
on the
for
shelf.
North 40.
Okay.
We've got that for.
Right, but
Right.
for the others.
Yeah.
But the others, and you also have to, as we're discussing it, you have to look at building something brand new versus bringing something that has fallen off the track, so to speak, like Quatet Park. I wouldn't take little
But-
kids to Quatet
Yeah,
Park.
and that will also be determined because there's different funding available for each of the different
Exactly,
funds.
that
So
too.
it's-
There's so many
right. But
factors.
there's still only so much work that the city
Yes, yes.
employees can.
And I think
can-
plans is generic enough that some of these may be construction plans and others may be concept plans. And you guys can get
Yes.
that.
As far as the estuary park, aside from the viewing platform, I don't necessarily know that needs to be immediately improved.
That's all we're talking about is the staircase and the
'Cause I think
observation.
it functions as it is now as a natural area, and then maybe it could
I
at
would
some
say-
point.
No,
Right in the parking lot.
our thought,
Plans is generic enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Let's move on.
Last one, address the impacts of tourism and events, raise awareness of tourism benefits among residents. And so the 2 outcomes are complete projects that improve infrastructure and services that serve both visitors and residents. And the second one is assess resident sentiment towards tourism and implement strategies to improve. So the first one, I think, really ties in to the immediate goal above it. Those are kind of
I
done at the
I-
same
you
time.
know,
that as
I'm-
being way too big.
Well, plus, I think if
Pick the project.
if this is talking about improving our residents' attitude about tourism, I think that's the wrong way to go. It's called improving the management of tourism in our city. How
I
do we
agree
manage
that
it better?
we do a better job as opposed to just the perception of the better job.
Exactly.
Yeah. Actually deliver.
So it's the management.
And I think that first one there really goes back to, I don't know what we call them, but there are overriding principles that we make decisions based off of.
Oh, we
that-
have
that are
that from
in-
2030.
Right,
Yes.
right.
The
And so
2030.
that's addressed there.
Mm-hmm.
That when we make decisions, it fits into those guidelines are already in place, making those decisions.
So
So I see
having-
that as extremely vague and doesn't really tell us anything.
So we should bring those principles that we developed in the 2030 plan and make sure that that's also part of this.
It's 2034.
2034, yeah.
So, David, are you saying we pick a project here and actually decide what we're gonna do?
No, I just think we take that out.
Take the
Take
first,
which one out?
the top one.
The top one.
Unless we
Because-
have something specific in mind.
So I think part of this was
This is
like,
more guiding
if,
principle than it
well,
is
well, if we decide to, that we are able to use TLT funds to build the North 40, that would be a project that would be a big benefit to our residents as well as to visitors And that would raise the level of
But
appreciation.
how do you measure it when you just say complete projects?
Well, if the project's, well, yeah, we have to we can specify.
We haven't specified what's there,
We
it's
have
just vague.
in the second one, implement strategies to improve.
I
That could
think that's where
include
part part
completing the
fits.
projects. So let's just take that one out and have one straight across there. It's 10 till we need to quit.
So we fine with the last one there
No, I'm
then,
not
the
fine with
assess?
it. I don't want to implement strategies to improve our residents' sentiments about tourism. I want us to improve our management of tourism.
You're saying our management of tourism is poor?
We can always improve it.
I'm not sure I
I'd
know
like
what
to see
that means.
measurement looks like.
Right. But
We are doing the survey right now to measure that. So we should, after we get that, figure out how we can improve that sentiment, and that's going to be how we manage tourism.
and
Those surveys
we
have been
should
done
also,
before. They don't come out very good.
yeah, we should also
Well,
promote.
they've been done for the North Coast, dude, we could do it for Seaside
But we
specifically.
We
It'll
could
be
promote
somewhere.
our
I
residents
think it'll be
taking
lower,
that
yeah.
survey, so that there's input.
So do we have some direction on this last one? I'm not clear on what it
Taking
is.
out complete projects
Yeah,
that
I
improve.
I think the last one is fine, because
Yeah.
we're assessing resident sentiments. If we do a survey, we've done that.
So do we want to
And figure out
get
where
rid of
we
the
go.
implement
we are,
strategies? Was that the hang
I
up?
wouldn't say implement strategies, develop strategies.
That supposes that we have findings first, yeah,
Right.
that makes sense.
To improve, and what are we improving? To improve what?
Resident sentiments, that's what it says there.
I think the wording, by saying the
I can
resident
word
sentiment,
fit it.
it's,
Words
You'll
it's
figure out.
expressing that we're actually
I'll AI it.
Okay, we're adjourned.
accomplishing something there, not just the perception of something.
me do it, Mayor?
Yeah. There we go.
I call the Seaside City Council meeting to order.
Please rise.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Recorder Kim, please call the roll.
Thank you. First, I'll call Caden McElroy.
Here.
Sorry if I messed that up. Counselor Montero. Present. Counselor Kozlowski.
Here.
Counselor Hoffman.
Here.
Counselor Binnicker.
Here.
Council President Morrissey.
Here.
Mike's not on.
Mayor Wright.
Here.
Counselor McVeigh.
Here.
Thank you.
One slight change on the agenda tonight. We won't have a Seaside High School student update. I have a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
So moved. So I'll second.
Who is the? Seamus? Okay. Councilor Seamus and Council President Morrissey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to come down there and talk about the If I Were Mayor contest. They're going to be displayed on the screens. Come on up, yeah. Each year, the If I Were Mayor contest, which is put on by the Oregon Mayors Association, gives us the opportunity to hear the dreams and the ideas of the next generation. I want to thank Cannon Beach Mayor Barb Knopp and Ruth Swenson, who is unfortunately not here, for joining me in this really fun project. Ruth also provided the cash prizes for the winners, as well as Sea Star Gelato and Phillips Candies gave gifts for all of the participants. There were about 46, if I remember right, altogether of the fourth grade classes. Fourth grade classes at Pacific Ridge inspired us by showing us how much our young people care about their communities and how thoughtfully they've imagined how they could make a better future for us. This is Kira's poster, right? Huh? Oh, that's La Luna's poster. Okay, La Luna, Micho is not here tonight to accept her award. Ruth, Mayor Barb, and I had a tough decision on which posters to select. There were a lot of very interesting ideas. Third place, La Luna, who was up there first, she's from Dan Van Nortwick's class, and she'll receive a cash prize of $20. She had ideas about more flowers and trees, a bigger dog park, a new recycling and composting center, and sidewalks on Wahana. For second place, Kira, also from Mr. Van Nortwick's class, will get a cash prize of $30, and I forgot to bring it with me.
I'll take care of it.
Oh, okay. There they are. You want to say what some of your ideas were?
Traffic lights at the intersection of 101 Street, bigger dog parks, an amphitheater at the turnaround, sidewalks, and a space for the dog on the beach. on beaches.
Some really good ideas, one of which we were actually just talking about a little bit ago here with a signal at 101 and S. So good ideas all. In a few years, you'll be able to come up here and join us in doing that. So here's your second place prize. Yeah, so. And then for first place, Caden from Lisa Kohler's class gets a cash prize of $50. She also gets an entry into the statewide contest. I just happen to be on the people that are selecting the winners. One of about 10, so I'll really work hard to say yours is the best, okay? I won't be biased at all, no. What were some of the things that were on yours?
More environmental areas. Preserve, I think that's with preserve land. A safe homeless shelter and increase housing.
All big, good ideas, right? And, did you have fun up there sitting with me running the meeting? Was that cool?
Kind of.
Okay, again, maybe in a few years, we're always happy to hear from everybody in our schools, and we have a great time. Mayor Barb, you got something for her there?
Congratulations.
There you go.
Put it in for college.
Yeah. Okay, parents, you want any pictures? You got them all already? Thank you very much.
And I'm excused, right?
No, you have to stay.
Just stay for the whole meeting, Barb.
Just in case you were wondering, the Mayor of Gearhart actually did his own contest out of the same classes, the same fourth graders, because there were, I think, 7 kids altogether just from Gearhart. So he took care of doing that himself. Okay. We have a proclamation for Older American Month. Every generation builds a foundation for the next generation, and in Seaside, we're really fortunate to have a very solid foundation. Since somewhere between 25 and 30% of us are over the age of 60. A high percentage of our city volunteers on our boards, committees, and commissions are also in that age group. And we like to call ourselves experienced, right, Bob? So we're all very grateful for their guidance and work on behalf of the city, and I've asked Councilor Binnicker to read the proclamation.
Whereas on this 62nd anniversary of Older Americans Month, we honor our nation's senior citizens whose lifetimes of hard work, devotion to family, and commitment to community have laid the foundation for the country we are today. We have a responsibility to ensure our nation's seniors can age with dignity and financial security, and whereas President John F. Kennedy's first proclamation for older Americans came at a time when many seniors lived in poverty and lacked health insurance. In response, the nation created Medicare and strengthened Social Security, lifting many seniors out of poverty. Today, honoring seniors means keeping the promise that these essential programs will continue to support them in retirement, and we have a strong commitment to protect these and other vital lifelines. And Whereas older Americans should be able to live, work, and participate in their communities with dignity. This growing population enriches our community with their strength, wisdom, and diverse life experiences. And now, therefore, I, Steve Wright, Mayor of the City of Seaside in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2025 as Older Americans Month. I call upon all of us to celebrate older adults for their contributions, support their independence, and recognize their unparalleled value to our city. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Seaside to be affixed this 28th day of April 2025.
Thank you, Counselor. Members of the public may use this time now to provide comments to City Council on items that are not scheduled on this agenda for a public hearing or public comment. Speaking time is limited to 3 minutes. I did not receive anybody signing up.
We left them on the table.
Oh, could you, yeah.
Oh, the police chief is getting it.
Yep. Okay, Linda Martin. Topic is the North 40.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Wright and council members. As you know, we've appealed your decision to build the Pacific project development on that North 40 lot. As I can tell from listening to you, Mayor, tonight with your partners, you know, you sound like you're definitely for it. And I just don't understand why you would be so for cramming an apartment building into that little piece of land just because the county has given it to you. When I just read in the paper last week that the city has 170 acres of usable land that they could use to build apartments that wouldn't be cramming so many people into a low-density environment. I hope that you all are aware of the neighborhood of Indian Way and Village Terrace. We have a very special little pocket. I'm very, very super fortunate to get to be part of that and to live there. And this 3-story apartment complex that you'll be putting right in our front yard is going to destroy our world as we know it. Not just mine, but all of the neighbors that live on those 2 streets. We pay combined over $100,000 in property taxes, and I would expect my council members to think about that rather than just completely ignore our way of life. None of you would want this 3-story apartment complex across the street from your homes, and so I don't see how you can justify doing it to us. I just read that cities all over the country are having the same problem with lack of affordable housing. And I know this isn't going to be a popular topic with most of you, but it's because of the vacation rentals and the Airbnb business, which has destroyed not just our town and our housing availability, but that of every popular destination in the United States. And big cities are starting to combat this issue by going back to the original requirement that a Airbnb has to have the owner living in the home that they are renting the room out to. And this is how it got started, but it quickly morphed into the huge corporation that it is today. And take the Tumwater Apartments, for example. They've just been sold and bought by 2 developers, so now that's another 20 low-income people that are going to be out of a home so that they can create 20 Airbnb units.
You've got 10 seconds.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bruce Rosebrock.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm talking on the North 40 as well. First off, when I first questioned this publicly about the density of the transportation and the parking and the number of units here, I was addressed by David Pozowski on social media, and here's what he said. Bruce Rosebrock, I would bet that these low-income folks don't have the number of cars you have. Just say it. You hate low-income people. I would expect more out of the council than that kind of approach. For him to speak out for the council that's unacceptable. So there's lots of properties throughout Clatsop County without many of the issues facing this piece of land. So why choose this one? The City of Seaside, the Planning Commission, the Clatsop County should all be working together to address what is well known to be a county-wide problem, not simply Seaside's. Just because the City of Seaside now owns the building site is no reason to fail to search for a better one, to join with the county in doing so, and to choose a site without the following risks and consequences. This site is too small for 69 residences and parking for some 140 vehicles, including handicapped spaces, along with what was originally proposed a year ago, a community center. What does the fire marshal say about emergency access? How will such parking density impact parking in adjacent neighborhoods? What about the proximity to a long-time industrial site? Wilcox and Flagle Fuel, Sopco Welding Shop, they deal with a lot of hazardous materials. What about the related noise pollution for residents? This is in a tsunami zone. We spent millions relocating multiple schools to a higher elevation. Why build a high-density city-supported project in a dangerous flood zone? In an emergency, Holiday would be plugged by evacuating vehicles. What about insurance costs, renter's insurance? There are proximity issues with the project butting up against Highway 101. What happens to future expansion of Highway 101? The stop signs where 24th and Highway 101 connect is very dangerous. This project makes an existing problem much worse. These rentals would come with car fumes, road noise. There's very limited access to this project. All traffic in and out of this project channels through an existing easement in front of a private garage. This is off Holiday. Your illustration shows the project wrapping around 2333 Holiday. How is this remotely fair to those homeowners and taxpayers? What's been done to test for industrial waste or buried fuel tanks on the property? Is this opening up for future lawsuits against the City of Seaside? There's a very high probability of existing indigenous burial grounds. What archaeological evaluation has been completed? If not done yet, it would be thoughtful to reach out to the Clatsop tribe and to Oregon State University. They've performed investigations in adjacent neighborhoods. So I ask you, please, slow down. Think it through a little more. Partner with the county and their shared interests. Look for a larger, less congested site at a higher altitude, one with fewer issues regarding land use and building codes, and less better suited for your project. This isn't fair to the existing Seaside homeowners and longtime taxpayers of North Seaside. Thank you.
Okay. Any counselor wish to declare potential conflict of interest? Hearing none, may I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
I do have one change to the minutes of April 14th. Sarah Walker was referred to in the minutes as part of the Seaside Watershed Council. It's actually the Mechanicsum Watershed Council.
Okay, with that amendment?
With that, I'd move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Council President Morrissey, Councilor Binnicker? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Tonight, we have a presentation by our fire department, and there's 3 of them sitting back there. Come on up. Oh, did Chief Daniels make sure he was out of town for this?
He's out on injury, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a pretty tough way to get out of doing an annual report.
Don't automatically. All right, thank you for having us to talk about the fire department's annual report for 2024.
Did you guys introduce yourselves first?
And we'll start with introductions. I'm Genesee Dennis. I'm the Fire Marshal and Division Chief of Prevention.
I'm Dave Rankin. I'm the Operations and Training Division Chief.
Rick Plummer, Division Chief of EMS and Ambulance Operations.
So the things that we do throughout the year could not be done without a great team. Currently, we have 8 paid staff. The Chief, Joey Daniels, the 3 division chiefs that we just introduced, and 4 line staff. Along with that, we have currently 21 volunteers and 2 residents. We plan to increase the residents to 6 this next fall. We're doing testing on those currently. Didn't get pictures of everybody. We tried. Statistics review. For the most part, a majority of our calls are EMS related. Out of the 1,912 calls in total. Some of the statistics you may not know as far as what the categories mean, but we'll go over those. Good intent means that a concern was called in, but there's no real event. For example, we get called often to somebody down is what it'll come in as. Unknown medical, but it will be somebody resting, sleeping on the beach, sleeping in a park, that sort of thing. So they have every good intention of trying to help somebody, but it's non-emergent. False alarms are when systems or people falsely call for help. So a system may be an alarm system that has a malfunction electronically, and it'll call out to us, and we'll get there, and nothing will be found. Or people falsely calling might be somebody pulling an alarm pull station. A lot of times those are kids, running down the halls of a hotel and pulling those. Service calls are helping people without fire or hazards. Those would be a lift assist, helping somebody with general weakness off the floor at their home. Water leaks where we got to help evacuate that water, or an animal rescue. Then we have hazards, and the hazards are dangerous conditions that don't involve fire, such as a gas leak or a fuel spill. So over the last 10 years, we're on par, kind of as far as raising numbers. We're kind of plateaued here at the last couple of years, but as our population increases, we project that it will continue to rise over the years. So this last year, we finished up our remodel of the station, seismic, and some other things that we wanted to get done. We finished that up in December. We came in under budget. Major additions is the third, we call it the third story, which gives us 4 additional sleeping rooms and a day room, which the staff and those folks spending the night can lounge, and eventually we're going to be getting gym equipment so that the guys can work out. And so those extra rooms will help house those total of 6 residents, and eventually 2 sleeper 24-hour shifts when we get those. Next, David's going to talk about wildland.
Yeah, last year was a record-breaking year for Oregon Fire Service in general, but also for Seaside Fire. In Oregon alone, they burned 1.9 million acres, and for the Office of State Fire Marshal, they deployed 17 different incident management teams and conflagrations. For Seaside, we deployed with to 11 of those in Oregon, and then even though it happened in January, we're still kind of considering it the one to California. Those deployments typically can only maybe range from 1 to 4 people, depending on the crew complement or who's going out, whether it's an engine or we taking a task force leader or a member of the incident management team through OSFM. And then typically deploying 1 to 2 vehicles. And we plan to be out for 2 weeks at a time. That's the max that Oregon will have us out before they rotate us through. I think the longest one last year, besides California, was 12 days over in Eastern Oregon. Some of them can be as short as last year. I think they were a day or 2, but the shortest I've heard of is they turned around before they got to Baker City a couple years ago. So that's a real short one. But yeah, who knows what we have in store for us this wildland season. Speaking from being on the incident management teams, we're gearing up a little bit more on our side to be have a little bit more availability with resources and ordering equipment. There's been a lot of changes in the federal teams, and we're not getting as much support from them right now. And it's been trending that way the last couple of years. I think they went nationwide from like 50 something incident management teams from the federal government. They're down to about 35 now, so they get stretched really thin. And they spend a lot of time in Oregon. Training wise, last year was also, besides doing our remodel, we were actually built a new training tower. Hopefully everyone's gotten to tour it so far. If not, let me know, we can get a tour. It's 4 stories. It's got 2 burn rooms that can burn Class A wood props. It's got a confined space prop in it. We can do rope rescue inside and outside, utilize pretty much every corner of it for ladder training with the aerial. And let's see, it's got a smoke system inside. It's pretty state of the art. We came in right at budget, about $900,000 for that, and we're pretty excited to have that as our new training facility compared to what we had, which was the tower they built when they built the outlet mall. The construction workers built that for them. It was falling apart. If you hadn't been on it, it was falling apart. So we're pretty excited about this. We're just we've already started using it, obviously, and we're looking forward to using it with ourselves and our mutual aid partners.
So last year was our first full year of ambulance operations. And it's been huge to our community and our citizens, along with our visitors. But with that came a lot of new training. Can you hear me? Sorry. That came a lot of new training the state requires. It's about 20 to 30 hours additional per person just to be able to drive the ambulance, let alone work in the back of the ambulance. And with that, we had 113 transports last year. 2 of them went to Columbia Memorial due to the trauma system entries, and then most of them go to the local Providence Seaside Hospital. For billing wise, we saw about $200,000 in billed out for ambulance transports, and we received about $80,000 of that back. And that's due to Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement rates. So what we bill out, we don't get that full amount back.
All right, prevention. Prevention is my realm. But last year, we continued to get out and get into the schools, which is a big part of prevention. If we get to those schools year after year and talk to the little ones, some of our messaging, continues and eventually is ingrained in there. So that's a big part of it, is the outreach. We're doing inspections, so we get out and doing inspections. We just trained our guys in company officer inspections. So at my level, I'm the highest level as a certified fire marshal, recognized by the state. And then at the company level, we can get the guys out there and trained up to do some simpler inspections of, like a mercantile clothing store, that sort of thing, looking for fire extinguishers and other, minor safety items. So we're trying to expand on those inspections. We partnered last year with the Oregon State Fire Marshals. They gave us a grant, which enabled us to get some beach fire safety signs at most of our entrances. We got 22 in total. So at every entry point along the prom and some of the areas down by the Avenue U and up at the end of the world, we got these beach safety signs to advise patrons on how to be safe on the beach and some of the general rules, like, staying 25 to 50 feet away from the dune grass and things like that. We also were able to do a mailer, wildfire preparedness mailer to all residents in the city of Seaside, just giving tips on what people can do in keeping their homes prepared, cleaning up yard debris and things like that. So that was a good partnership. Something that we haven't talked about, I don't think, in the past, which I thought might enlighten everybody, is pretty much every time we have a fire, there is a fire investigation component of that. We have a county-wide fire investigation team. We meet monthly to do training and talk about fire investigations. And basically what happens is that we are required, as a fire department, the chief is required by ORS to investigate fires. Some are simple in that, people admit to, it started in the fire or in the dryer, and we can go in and look at that and verify that that's actually what happened. But sometimes nobody has any inclination of what took place, and that will basically, cause us to call out the fire investigation team, and we'll have to dig that thing, and it can take a couple of days sometimes. So it can be rigorous in what we do, and there's a lot of training involved that all the people on the FIT team have to do. So I thought I'd share that with you.
As far as water rescues go, we had 34 calls for service for that last year, ranging from, obviously you can see, not just what we typically think of with being out in the ocean. Flooding components, people driving the wrong vehicle for the ocean. He should be in jet ski, not a forerunner. We continue to work with our partner agencies, Gearhart and Cannon Beach, with training and standardization with our protocols, and just trying to expand, the capabilities and how quick we can get to a water call to initiate response. So, looking forward to continuing another year with that.
And lastly, the lifeguards. We had a record year of attendance, 818,000. So these lifeguards really have a big assignment ahead of them, dealing with that many visitors that come to the beach, and they are basically our ambassadors. So they're the ones that the visitors go to ask many questions. So general info questions, there was at least 147. Public assist, helping somebody, get up to the beach because of accessibility. Maybe they're getting tired or they just can't make it back up there. The lifeguards, they'll give them rides and do other assisting events. Rule enforcement, they'll go around, and if they see somebody getting too close to the dune grass with their fire pits, they try to engage with those folks and give them the information before it's an issue, and have them move their things. Also, some rule enforcement would be that they're digging holes. We actually have an ordinance that says you can't dig a hole bigger than 3 by 3 by 3. That one component of that is it's dangerous, and they can have collapse if they get too deep. And then also responding emergency vehicles can hit those and cause problems. So we try to keep that at bay. They had 537 prevention contacts. So that means they're getting out there and they're talking to people before they get into the rip currents and the other dangerous areas. So that's absolutely great that they're getting out there and doing that. Surf rescues, we had 29 surf rescues, and that would be a lot more if we didn't have so many prevention contacts. First aid, they help, Band-Aids mostly, but first aid, rinsing off, strawberries from the skimboarding and other little minor injuries. There was 27 of those. And then missing persons or found persons, we had 30. So came up to us and we helped assist find 30 people.
All of them have been found by now.
Yes,
They are.
no, none are still lost. So
30
with that,
and 30.
that
Just
can-
one
Sure.
thing that just popped in my mind. The beach attendants, our lifeguards are only out there from Memorial Day to Labor Day, more or less.
Yes.
So is that 8/18 just when they're there?
Yes. Yep. So the Visitors Bureau has software that they can look at, cell phone data, and that is between Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Right.
Yep. It's
Okay.
pretty significant.
Yeah.
So with that, that's all we have, and
I would
open
say
it up
one
to any
more in
questions.
closing is just we both mentioned, working with the Office of State Fire Marshal, not only on the prevention and inspection side and investigation, but also on the wildland. But they did last year. Was it the third year in a row that we had the grant? Third year in a row, we had we were awarded their seasonal firefighting grant. So they give us $35,000 extra just for upstaffing, which helped out, and we did get it again this year. So that allows us to bring extra staffing on busy days or seasonal. We have 2 seasonal positions open this year to just better jump on calls earlier, so not just wildland calls.
Awesome.
Questions, comments?
I have a question. Do you think that we have adequate signage or public information when we have these 818,000 people coming in? What could the city do better to forewarn them of the hazards that could happen on the beach, whether it be signage or handouts or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance, right? Sometimes you add more signs and they just ignore the signs more. So there's that balance of not having too much. But I think what we've done this year with OSFM and the beach safety signs is a start, because there's really was no signs at some of these entrances. So hopefully that those are going to help, and we'll probably be able to report after this summer if they were effective or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hats off to everything you guys do. Just to dovetail on Heidi's question, there's 2 signs at the Cove. They're in major need of love, and I've been kind of working, I think it's State Parks that actually controls those, but you'll see those if you go. They're totally faded, and those would be very helpful. As far as the vehicles that were in the water, that was Gearhart Beach, right? Okay, just checking.
Yep. It wasn't our beach.
And then the training tower, I know this has been brought up before, but that was paid for by a grant, correct?
Yeah, well, it was paid through our operations levy.
Okay.
That was part of it, and then our new water tender is being built right now, and we'll take delivery of that in about a year and a half.
That far, it's still underway. Wow.
Yeah. Fire trucks right now, it doesn't matter what manufacturer you go with, they're about 3 to 4 years out.
And then as far as the wildland firefighting, the city's reimbursed for you guys to go out and help other communities.
That's correct. Once the governor declares a conflagration, or there's a couple of smaller components, but once it's enacted through the governor's office, from the time we leave to the time we get back, our personnel are reimbursed from the state. The rig is paid or reimbursed to the state, and then any backfill we need. So if I'm gone my normal working day and Jen's off, he can come fill my spot, and then he's also reimbursed. So yeah, we're definitely made whole through the conflagration.
Great job.
And do those payments come timely? Is that something that, he looks up, in general, do we?
We submit it and then they receive it, but I think within a month or 2 for Oregon. The California
that's great.
The California one's going to take a while, but that's just because they're dealing with 13 other states. But that one can take up to
9 months.
9 months. Yeah.
Wow. Were you guys training down in the Cove was it Saturday or Sunday? I saw you down there, and it just occurred to me, such an impressive show of both people and vehicles and equipment, and it just reminded me how lucky we are, I think, here as residents and then as visitors who might not even know, in the 818,000 people that were here last year, how lucky we are to have you. So thank you.
We, a couple of staff members and I attended your banquet, and I always appreciate how you honor each other. But you all just demonstrate such a great teamwork and camaraderie, and it shows. And you do a lot of things out in the public. You have the fire station open and serve hamburgers and whatever a couple times a year, and you're just all over. And I think that helps our residents see, you guys are at work all the time, you and the total of 8 employees and all the other volunteers and everybody else. So you do a great job. We're certainly appreciative of everything you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We still have vacancies. Airport Advisory, Community Center, and Parks Advisory. So get out there. Beat the bushes, folks.
Do we have anyone that's applied for the Parks Advisory yet?
No applications. Okay, matter of unfinished business, continued discussion, and possible doing something about the recycling depot operations and a new location. Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So we initially talked about this a couple meetings ago, 2 meetings ago. So let me jump into it. So this is the current location of the recycling depot, which we know is on the corner of Aldermill and Avenue S, represented by the red star. And this is the types of incidents we are dealing with. I think the real issue is not the proximity of the homeless camp, although that may be a contributing factor, but it is really down to individuals dumping at this location. And some of the problems are that there aren't many eyes on it, so it's easy for someone to pull in, back in a truck, unload it, and leave, and it's a considerable cost, either to Recology or to the cities. Some of the things do end up in our camp and have to be cleaned up later, and it's a significant problem. And so we have discussed, Recology has told us that they intend to close this recycling depot because of these problems. Now, under the state law, we are required to offer certain recycling services. Because we already do the mixed recycling at the curbs, the only thing that we are missing is glass recycling. That's something we're required to do, and this recycling depot has always had a place to recycle your glass. We have also talked about doing curbside glass, curbside green waste, and things like that. However, the initial numbers we've got back are it's pretty expensive. So as we worked with Recology, what we identified was the idea to split out glass, have a new location that's only for glass recycling, and have a location for cardboard recycling, which everyone's mixed containers can already take cardboard. I think that the issue is when you have something really large, you buy a new TV, refrigerator, something like that, and it comes with that. It's not going to fit in your can without a lot of work, and so it's used quite a bit by residents for that purpose and also by our businesses. So the first thing I want to talk about is glass recycling. And so staff has looked at places all across the city, and ultimately we thought this was the best location. I will say that I am modifying the recommendation that was from what was in your staff report. But I'll get into that in just a sec. So we're suggesting or recommending the back corner of the Visitors Bureau. This would have, staff would have more regular eyes on it. There's a lot of people, it would be difficult to just dump at this location. It's also fairly convenient and easy to access for our residents who are in need of glass recycling. So we originally, I think bottom one? Well.
That's the spot.
Yeah, he's trying to.
So originally we had talked about putting it, if you see there, there's some trees to the left of that shed. The shed belongs to the chamber. I think it's intended to be removed. The intent was to put it on the north side of those trees, behind those trees. I did reach out to Sunset Empire. We want to be good neighbors with them and see if they had any concerns. Their main concern was that it would increase the amount of traffic going from their parking lot through the Visitors Bureau. That is something that both our staff and Sunset Empire are in agreement that that is a problem. And we have had discussions of an intent at some point to close it. And so instead of encouraging more traffic to go through there, what I'm recommending tonight is that that we actually use this as an opportunity to close that connection between the parking lots, that we would place the dumpster. I've got a picture of what it might look like. Hopefully it looks a lot nicer than that one. That's the one they gave to us. We'll have them painted or something.
Yeah.
But place it kind of where that white X is, and then maybe get some of the eco blocks that we've been building up and put it along there behind there, so it really closes the access point, which we think will solve another problem. But in any case, that's what we're looking at. Possibly, if for some reason that didn't work, we may put it just to the right of where that shed is, where it can, again, still be easily accessed. And so we think it hits all of our needs. It's not right next to any kind of residential area. It's an area of high visibility, something a lot of city employees will have eyes on, and we think it will work well at that location. We considered many other ones, but nothing was as high as this one.
How high up is that, the hole that you put it in?
I don't know, but it should be reachable for anyone.
Okay.
My guess is, I mean, it looks taller than I think
it looks pretty
actually
tall.
is. It should be something that you should just be able to reach in. I know the one that they have now doesn't look like this. It's a little more open, and we want something that's a little more closed off that makes it more difficult to get inside. The purpose is to discourage any of that.
And the lid is locked, I take
Yeah.
it. So the theory would be that if I had glass to get rid of, I drive in the driveway behind the visitor center and just drive up there and get out of the car and dump and then keep going?
No, because then you would either leave out on Broadway or out on 101.
And, okay, so to get out on 101, I'm going to go to past that X to about that line and take a left into the chamber parking lot?
No, so this right here, you would have, let's say you entered
Then I
from
don't know
Broadway
that-
behind the Visitors
where it
Bureau. You'd pull up to the glass recycling, do your business, and then either take a north exit out of the Visitors Bureau parking lot or head south onto Broadway.
Where the star is.
So you're gonna stay below the star in this case on that map.
So if I'm going to go back to Broadway, I've got to make a U-turn to come back.
You can just turn left onto Broadway.
Is that Broadway I'm looking at?
No.
Because I've lost the perspective. I'm
Okay.
not understanding.
The restrooms are to the
Yes, just to the immediate left. So this right here,
Okay, those are the restrooms, right?
right there.
There,
And
okay.
if on the bottom right-hand picture, the curve
the
right there on the
Broadway.
left side
Got
is
it.
the left edge of the restrooms.
And it's where the star is.
Yeah,
So between the restrooms, okay.
yeah. So you could park in any of those spots, you could pull in right in front of it, and then you would just exit south onto Broadway.
You would back up and turn around to get back out to Broadway.
Right, that's
Yeah.
what I was saying.
Right.
Okay. So it would not be visible from the highway.
Yeah, it would be pretty screened by both the restrooms and the trees that are there.
And on weekends, there isn't much activity there.
No, and I mean, one of the things that we can consider that they've offered is we can specify the days that it is there. I think they offered that. when they did that, I think the general consensus I got from the council, we'd rather have it there all the time than just weekends or just weekdays. But I think that we can start with something and monitor how it goes.
My concern is just being able to have some sort of blocking so that people aren't driving all the way up to it and aren't running into it until they get used to it being there. And, and them still being able to get it out of there.
Yeah, I'm sure we could do some things. So as I mentioned, I'd want to do eco blocks on one side, so it really was closed. And we could do some other things with some reflective features and whatnot to maybe narrow it down to where the dumpster is. We still want to keep it open for the recycling truck to come and be able to empty it.
Right.
But yeah, certainly we don't want anyone going through there. I mean, it would be hard to miss, but in the middle of the night or something
maybe
like that.
Maybe a cable or chain in front of it or something like that.
Some lights.
With reflectors.
I mean, they're going to hit the chain or the dumpster, but
Yeah.
Does this impact the farmer's market at all?
no, it's closed. So when we had the other location originally, which was just north of there, the only issue would have been it would have been not accessible during the market unless you parked here and walked in with your bottles. And the only issue is Recology wouldn't have been able to dump it during the market, which they said wasn't an issue because it's probably going to be a once a week thing or something like that. With this at its new location, it shouldn't be an issue at all.
Okay.
I think it looks like a great place for it. Much easier in and out.
Yeah, I have noticed during farmers market that they've had food vendors or whatever
yeah.
parked in that area, but
And
I'm
they
sure it's not an
are-
issue with moving it.
Yeah, they are just on so there's a yellow speed bump there. They're usually on the north
Other
side
side
of that.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
No, they,
Oh.
yeah.
Well, they
So
can work
they'll
with
have
us to get permission to.
They'll have to figure out
I don't think
somewhere
that's
else.
going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kim and I can't wait till they're back.
Let me go to cardboard recycling. So the idea was to do something closer to downtown, more convenient for our businesses. Oh. Oh, look at that. Well,
Are we sure
Ooh, crazy.
that spot. Recology looked downtown, we've looked downtown, and I think we all know space is tight downtown. Possibly there could have been some alleyways, but that would have been tight for the truck. And we want it convenient for our residents as well. So this is what was identified. There are 3 parking spaces right here on the south side of the convention center and just next to their generator. And the proposal, as we worked with the convention center staff, would be to remove the 2 parking spaces immediately to the west of the generator and put the cardboard recycling there. And then the third spot, which is the one furthest to the left in that picture, to actually make it specific parking for attendees at the convention center. There's often trucks that are used for loading and unloading, and having a designated spot for those purposes, not for the city, but for groups coming through, would be helpful to them. So we're looking at something like this, like what's currently there. We had proposed to build an enclosure around it, just for the aesthetics, to make it look nicer, and try to match the colors and other things so it blends in well and doesn't detract from the convention center. And Recology has said they're willing to participate in the cost of constructing something at that location.
My concern is just the number of those boxes that can fit there, because over on Avenue S, there's probably 6 or 7 of them. And I don't know that would fit into that space, and those are often full by the time they come and get them.
So part of that, and we'll work with them. I think we try to fit in as many as we can. We can also have them, increase the frequency of pickup. That can affect it as well.
But, I mean, we're trying to find a best location. I mean, if we wanted to consider a second location elsewhere, we could. My recommendation would be start with something first and then see how that goes and see if there's reasons to add a second location.
And have we talked to businesses downtown about how they feel about this?
I have not talked to any of them specifically about this location. I think the general consensus, or that I've heard from members of SDDA, is cardboard recycling is important, and if there was a location downtown, that would be ideal. But that when asked for, do any of them have space on their lots, that didn't hear much back.
Interesting.
And if you're, like, as an example, if you're a business on Broadway, I don't know where you would put this.
Can I assume that even with fencing around it, it's not going to terribly affect access to that parking lot back there?
No.
It's already occasionally hard to get to, especially if there's
It's
two-way traffic going
It's
on there.
quite wide because there's two-way traffic, and then just to the south of there, I think is it Pizza Harbor?
Yeah.
Their parking lot, there's probably 6 or 8 feet off of the road to where their parking stalls even start. So, because I was looking at that with them when they're looking at trying to bring in a truck to do the dumping and stuff like that. And there was quite a bit of room to do that.
Your picture earlier of the items that have been left at the recycle center, there was a mattress there, and that reminded me of something. I don't know if you got the email, but I have forwarded it to you. It came from a group called Mattress Recycling Council. They have a program called Bye Bye Mattress, and they're reaching out to, it's mainly, it looks like counties, but it's a nonprofit organization created by the bedding industry to implement statewide mattress recycling. So I sent it on to you to look at, and maybe that's something we can.
It's actually funded by you whenever you buy a bed.
Right.
It's a new state law.
Yes. So maybe something else we can encourage people to get rid of their mattresses appropriately.
Any other comments or questions about cardboard?
I have my concerns about losing parking downtown. I don't have a better option, but I do have concerns.
I can tell you that on Saturday I did go down there and look at the area, and that is 3 parking spaces.
Yeah, so we'd be taking
so it's really
2
right,
and saving 1 for convention purposes.
right. So you're really not losing a lot, and I think it's really giving a lot to the businesses.
We have a proposed motion in our notes there.
Can I
Somebody?
address one more thing really
one
quick?
more?
Not something to be decided tonight, but I did want to, I've approached Recology to start talking about green waste.
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention that currently the city does our own green waste program. It's done at the parking lot across from the fire department, as you can see on the red star there. It's right in that red curbed area, and it's offered Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think from 10 to 1. And the city places a dumpster there, then Public Works goes, picks it up, takes it up to our water treatment plant and dumps it there, and then periodically throughout the year burns it. My understanding, it was implemented and needed during the pandemic as we wanted fewer people outside burning because we were getting a lot of complaints. What I've asked Recology to do is, this is a significant amount of work for Public Works that Recology could be doing, and I'd rather save our Public Works employees for doing things only they can do. And so I've asked them to put together, there's a picture of what the dumpster looks like when it's there. I've asked them to put together some pricing for us, either like on a per haul or something where it can be just built into the rates that are charged.
Continue to have it here. I think if we were to add some more formality to it, we would have, I would like to see better signage, making it very clear that non-residents may not dump there, and more especially commercial landscaping businesses
Right.
can't dump there. Now, that's not always the easiest to enforce, but I think we could do a little bit better there.
Is there enough room where the glass recycling is to be able to get both units there?
It's possible. I only suggested this one because we could mimic exactly what we're doing now, but I think we're happy to look at other locations as well.
And you brought up what has been my main concern, and that is I've had residents complain to me that they get there at 10 o'clock on the button, and the dumpster is already, they're watching landscapers who have a business dump everything that they've collected in there. And these are people who are getting paid to do their work, and they're using up the capacity that our residents should be getting. So I'm really concerned about the fact that we have businesses that are utilizing this kind of a service inappropriately.
So I'd add the program we're looking at that I've asked them to price out, both Gerhardt and Cannon Beach already do.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those cities have a dumpster. In the case of Gerhardt, it's right at City Hall, so it's really conspicuous if you're going to dump. And at Cannon Beach, I believe theirs is staffed, so there is an attendant there. Both cities also have a program where they have each resident has a little sticker that they call it Klingon, I think, where they put it in your windshield.
Right.
And that provides free green waste disposal at the transfer station in Astoria. And so that's something that our residents could also have. We could do a dumpster, we could do the free passes, or do both like the other cities do. So I've asked them to kind of price out all three, and we'll just see what that looks like and what we think our residents would prefer.
Yeah, and I think that Cannon Beach, it's built into their trash rates.
Yeah, for both cities, I think all of that is. Yeah.
Could I jump in one last quick thing? How are we planning to communicate the glass and cardboard
So I think
changes?
the first thing we would do is, and we go to where the motion is. So the proposal is to basically have a month where we run both services. So the first thing we would do is at the current recycling center, put significant signage up saying, this will be closing on this date, start using these new locations today, type of a thing. I think then we would follow that up with other social media posts on our website, and hopefully having the word get out that way. We may be able to even work with Recology to see if they can put out a notice to the customers in Seaside with their billing.
Okay.
It's not very far. If you go there and it says closed,
Yeah.
go here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would move to approve moving the glass recycling to the Visitors Bureau and the cardboard recycling to the south side of the Convention Center beginning May 1st, 2025, and to close the Seaside Recycling Depot located on Avenue S on May 31st, 2025.
I'll second.
It's Council President Morrissey, Councilor Hoffman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good job. Okay. Look at that. 5 minutes after 7. City staff. We got a whole bunch of you back there. Anybody want to come forward and say anything? No, I don't see anybody rushing. Okay. Over here, John.
All right. First, I just want to commend the fire staff getting to work with them out of this building. I think we're really lucky, as Councilor Benneker noted, and to have firefighters that are so multifaceted in what they do. I remember shortly into working for the city and hearing how when they go out on conflagrations that they love getting Seaside firefighters because they come with so many skills and diverse backgrounds. And so just commend them, and as an example, to have fire chief be out and our division chief step in, and that's the way this team works, is kind of next employee up and ready to step in. So just commend them, and thankful to get to work with them. Along with the fire department, fire and rescue, we have lifeguard positions that we are recruiting for now. They did testing this past week, but we're still really looking to fill positions there. So whatever we can do, anything you can do to spread the word, we're looking for good men and women who can fill that role, because as you saw in the staff report, there's a lot of people, a lot of humans out on that beach, and anything we can do to help provide protection there is really important. The other positions that we have open right now, we're also attempting to fill summer positions with our Public Works Department. They're also vital as more people come into our city during the summer months. And then finally, we will have, it's an internal posting right now, but it will be going external as well on Thursday. It's an operations position, a full-time position with the convention center. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim, you gave us all of our instructions for going to the LOC convention conference.
That's your packets for those who are going.
Thank you very much for arranging it for us.
Everybody, Seth, sorry, I just tried last week to get you over.
I'll be all right.
Spencer's gonna be paying for all your rooms, so, and there's notes and everything in there, so.
Okay, thank you. Spencer?
Just some quick things. Appreciate the council's work with the budget committee to get that recommendation passed. We'll look forward to having more discussions in June. We've continued to work with the school district on the possibility of bringing in those emergency stockpiles and Connex boxes up above the high school. It sounds like Jeff and John, things are still moving forward. And then lastly, finally, after years and months, we were allowed to submit our ARPA funding report and how we use those dollars. So hopefully I'll start getting all those emails reminding us to file the report even before we were able to file the report. So if you see any of those, Zach assures me, he sent me the screenshots that it's been done. So
all right. Thank you.
And we appreciate that we were able to, as a reminder, all of the funds were used to purchase the majority of the estuary park.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that's a generational facility for our residents. That's all I have.
Thank you. Heidi?
I actually have a question. The firefighters were, one of their slides had keeping the trees safe distance or whatever from the house. And it reminded me that a couple of years ago, there's a vacation rental behind me, and one of their trees fell on my daughter's car and smashed the whole back window. And I had to call around and find out, who owns that house. And it prompted the question of who is responsible when these houses sit empty like they do. Who's responsible for going around the city and identifying hazardous trees that could fall? Is that strictly on the owner of the vacation rental? Is that on the city because we're responsible for general safety of the public? Or who really?
Ultimately, it would be the responsibility of the property owner. Our short-term rental ordinance does require a local contact. The idea being, the preference is that it's owner occupied and they rent it out sometimes and they're there. We know that's not always the case. And so they should have local property management that is going out, inspecting and looking at those, any kind of hazards. Some do that more than others. And we know that there are some that have been good and responsive and others less so.
So if a complaint comes into the city, hey, this vacation rental has a hazardous tree, and they're not doing anything about it, what does the city do?
We'd probably, I'd ask Jeff, but we'd probably take down the information and contact either the property owner themselves or whoever their representative is that we have on file and make them aware of that. I think my only concern would be we're not saying that we are experts in, trees and their condition, hazardous or not and things like that. So, but if there was relevant information, we would want to pass that on.
Okay. And again, praising for the fire department because they came out, got the tree off the car, chopped it all up into firewood and cleaned up the mess. So good job.
I'm looking forward to the LOC conference. It's a great opportunity for us to see best practices with cities across the state, as well as in times like this, hear what's happening in the legislative session and get updates and network with other cities across the state and how they're dealing with a lot of the same issues we're dealing with. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to get some education.
Good deal. Well, I'm looking forward to LOC as well, and commend again the fire department. We are very fortunate as a city to have the fire department and the staff that we have, and not just the paid staff, but the fact that we get so many good volunteers and people take the time to be so well trained. So I don't think we all appreciate how safe this city is in terms of fire safety and all the other things that the fire department does. It's not just fighting fires. On Friday in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I went out to Estuary Park. The Public Works Department had planted 4 trees in honor of Arbor Day at Estuary Park, and Victoria Fuller, the chair of the tree board, and I and Paul were there and celebrated. So it was nice to have that happen. Maybe next year we'll do something a little bit bigger. And I have to address the comments that we heard earlier from citizens. I am hoping that we are.
Can I say something first?
Sure.
I would caution the council from discussing those because there is an appeal, and we want to have the council.
I didn't realize that.
So we have an appeal, so we will have that at the appropriate time for the council to consider it, and I just advise you not to discuss it outside of the meeting, like we did on the Vista Ridge too. And so I would say hold your comments until you get all the information on the appeal, and then you'll have all the time you want to ask questions and comment on it.
All right, thank you. I didn't realize that.
Councilor McVeigh.
So I've had a busy couple weeks with the LOC Small Cities meeting this last week, which talked about Oregon heritage and how to preserve it, how to get the funds to be able to better preserve it. Honestly, I'm hoping to get the slide from it because unfortunately, due to positioning, I wasn't able to see everything. But what I was able to get was very educational, and I am deeply appreciative of it. Also had the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting this month, and I gotta say it was a bit of an informal meeting. Unfortunately, because we weren't able to operate the audio-visual recordings, we couldn't hold a formal official meeting. Hopefully we'll be able to get that resolved before the next one so that we can have everything up to snuff with public records. But what we did was basically just a review of what's been going on with new members on the committee. That was an important thing to get everybody up to speed. So looking forward to going down to LOC this week and learning about housing in particular. There's a lot that I need to really brush up on and educate. So it's going to be good.
After our workshop last week, our homework to review some of the mapping and vacant properties in our ward was a very interesting exercise for me. I enjoyed it, and I was surprised at the number of parcels that appeared vacant on the map that in fact were not really vacant. Either they weren't vacant or they were under construction, which is, that was sort of just alarming in terms of numbers and vacancies and buildable space. But I'm interested and excited to see the results of our analysis compiled back with the presentation we were given. So can't wait to get follow-up on that. We had, I think it was pretty cool, Alex Tubner, an NFL draft party for him, a Seaside local kid who was drafted in the NFL, and it just occurred to me that it's another example of just how the community comes together, and there's such, pride and fun and support of some of the kids in Seaside, so that was cool. And then last thing, I had some relatives that came to visit, and this was the first time they came to visit last week, and they used the new Visit Seaside website and just commented on how cool that website is. So if you haven't seen the redesigned website, go check it out. They did a great job.
I have a coffee with the counselor coming up Tuesday, May 6th at 9:15 at Seaside Coffee House. And then as far as the LOC conference, some of us up here have been going to a lot of them over the years. And one thing they do a really good job of is always mixing it up and keeping it interesting. I don't think I've ever been to the same thing twice. So I hope they continue that tradition, and I'm looking forward to learning and meeting with all you.
And if you haven't yet, use the app. It's really good to help you understand what's going on. The Sustainable Tourism Study was kicked off at the Seaside Museum's annual meeting last week. Have we got that available anywhere on the website where we can point people to it that don't know how to do a QR code?
We don't. We will ensure that.
That would be great. And just on a related note, lodging tax flexibility is not done yet. And there was actually a Travel Oregon published study recently last week, said the number one planning priority of the tourism partners was tourism-related infrastructure, which is what we've been trying to figure out how to handle. So, counselors, you do have homework again. Keep in mind the things that you learn at the conference this week and jot them down, because we will talk about them afterwards. And you come up with great ideas. If you find things somebody tried and it didn't work, write that down too, because a really good way not to make mistakes is to see somebody else that did that and do it, don't do it the same way they did it. Tonight, we honored the winners of the If I Were Mayor contest, and after hearing our young people's ideas, a number of which we have talked about, I think the future of our city is in really good and capable hands. To that end, my quote tonight is just an anonymous quote that I found. Says, today's young dreamers are tomorrow's great leaders. When we listen to their hopes, we catch a glimpse of the future they will one day shape. We're adjourned.